Respect is not something you demand. It is not something you chase. And it is certainly not something you beg for. Self-respect begins in the quiet, unseen moments of your life. It is not built when others are watching you, praising you, or validating you. It is built in the decisions you make when no one is there to approve or criticize. The way you speak to yourself, the way you treat your own time, and the standards you refuse to lower. These are the places where self-respect is formed. A woman who truly respects herself does not wait for permission to honor her own worth. She understands that her value is not something that can be negotiated depending on circumstances or people. There is a subtle but powerful shift that happens when you begin to take yourself seriously. You stop allowing small acts of self-betrayal. You no longer say yes when your mind is asking for space. You no longer tolerate what drains you just to avoid discomfort. Many people believe disrespect comes from others, but often it begins within. Every time you ignore your own limits, every time you silence your inner voice to keep others comfortable, you quietly teach the world that your boundaries are flexible, that your needs are optional. Self-respect requires honesty. Not the kind of honesty you show the world, but the kind you show yourself. It asks you to see clearly where you are compromising your values just to be accepted. It asks you to recognize the patterns where you settle for less than what you know you deserve. This is not easy because it removes all excuses. You can no longer blame others when you are the one allowing certain behaviors to continue. But this awareness is also where your power begins. A woman who respects herself does not attach her identity to how she is treated by others. Instead, she becomes the standard. She does not chase people who fail to recognize her worth because she is already grounded in it. This does not mean she becomes cold or distant. It means she becomes clear about what she accepts, clear about what she walks away from, and most importantly, clear about who she is. There is also discipline in self-respect. It is not just a feeling, it is a practice. It is waking up and choosing yourself, even when it is inconvenient. It is holding your boundaries, even when it feels uncomfortable. It is walking away, even when part of you wants to stay. Many people confuse self-respect with confidence, but they are not the same. Confidence can fluctuate. Self-respect remains steady because it is built on principles, not emotions. When you begin to respect yourself, your energy changes. You no longer seek constant reassurance. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to those who do not understand you. There is a quiet certainty in the way you carry yourself. And people notice this, not because you demand attention, but because your presence reflects stability. It reflects someone who knows their worth and is not willing to compromise it. Self-respect also shows in the way you handle difficult situations. Instead of reacting impulsively, you pause. You ask yourself what aligns with your values. You choose responses that protect your peace rather than feed your ego. This level of control is not weakness. It is strength. It shows that you are not easily shaken, that your sense of self is not dependent on external circumstances. Another important aspect is how you treat your time and energy. A woman with self-respect does not give unlimited access to everyone. She understands that her time is valuable and she chooses carefully where she invests it. She does not overextend herself just to be liked. She knows that saying no is sometimes more powerful than saying yes, and she is not afraid of disappointing others, if it means staying true to herself. Over time, this way of living creates a natural filter in your life. People who do not respect you begin to fall away, not because you push them out, but because they no longer find space where your standards exist. And those who remain are the ones who recognize and honor the way you carry yourself. This is how self-respect shapes your environment, without force, without conflict, and without the need for constant explanation. It becomes clear that respect is not something you chase externally. It is something that grows internally and reflects outward. When you hold yourself to a higher standard, the world adjusts, not because it is forced to, but because it has no other option. Emotional discipline is often misunderstood. Many believe it means suppressing feelings or becoming cold and unresponsive. But true discipline is not about denying what you feel. It is about not becoming a servant to it. A woman who carries this strength allows herself to feel deeply, but she does not let those feelings control her actions. She understands that emotions are temporary, but the consequences of her reactions can be lasting. In moments of tension, when something triggers frustration, anger, or sadness, the natural impulse is to react immediately, to speak quickly, to defend, to prove. But emotional discipline creates a space between the feeling and the response. In that space, there is awareness, and in awareness, there is choice. This is where her power lies. She does not give her control away to every situation or person that provokes her. There is a calmness in someone who has mastered this. Not because life is easy for her, but because she has trained herself to remain steady, even when things are not. She does not escalate every conflict. She does not allow small disturbances to become unnecessary chaos. Instead, she observes. She listens. She understands that not every situation deserves her reaction. And not every emotion needs to be expressed in the moment it arises. This kind of control requires patience. It requires the ability to sit with discomfort without trying to escape it instantly. When anger rises, she does not rush to release it onto others. When hurt appears, she does not immediately seek validation to soothe it. She gives herself time to understand what she is feeling and why. This creates clarity, and clarity prevents regret. Many people lose respect, not because they feel strongly, but because they express those feelings without control. Words spoken in anger, actions taken in impulse, decisions made in emotional overwhelm. These are often the things that damage relationships and self-image. A disciplined woman protects herself from this. She knows that a single moment of uncontrolled reaction can undo years of self-respect. There is also strength in silence. Not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of control. When she chooses not to respond immediately, it is not because she has nothing to say. It is because she understands timing. She understands that reacting in the heat of the moment often clouds judgment. By waiting, she ensures that when she does speak, her words are measured, intentional, and aligned with her values. Emotional discipline also means not taking everything personally. She recognizes that other people's actions often reflect their own inner state, not her worth. This awareness protects her from unnecessary emotional turmoil. Instead of reacting to every slight or misunderstanding, she steps back and sees the bigger picture. This does not make her indifferent. It makes her wise. Another aspect of this discipline is consistency. It is easy to remain calm when everything is going well. But true strength is revealed when things are challenging. When she is misunderstood, when she is tested, when situations do not go her way. This is where her emotional control becomes visible. She does not collapse under pressure. She does not allow circumstances to dictate her behavior. She remains grounded in who she is. This level of control also builds trust. People feel it when they are around someone who is emotionally stable. They know they are not dealing with unpredictability or unnecessary drama. They know that conversations will not suddenly turn into conflict without reason. This creates a sense of safety and respect, not because she demands it, but because her behavior consistently reflects balance. There is also a deep sense of self-awareness behind emotional discipline. She pays attention to her triggers. She learns from past experiences. She understands what affects her and works to manage it rather than ignore it. This ongoing process of self-understanding strengthens her ability to remain in control. It turns emotional reactions into conscious responses. Over time, this way of being becomes natural. It is no longer something she forces. It is something she embodies. She moves through situations with a steady presence. She does not rush, she does not panic, and she does not allow temporary emotions to define permanent actions. This quiet control is what sets her apart. Not loud, not aggressive, but deeply powerful in a way that does not need to be announced. There is a certain presence in a woman who does not feel the need to fill every silence. She understands that words are not meant to be used carelessly and that speaking constantly does not make her more valuable. In fact, it often does the opposite. When someone speaks without awareness, their words lose weight. But when someone chooses their words with intention, even a few sentences can carry depth and authority. She does not rush to respond to everything. She listens fully before she speaks, not just to reply, but to understand. This creates a different kind of communication, one that is not driven by the need to prove a point, but by the desire to bring clarity. When she speaks, it is not to dominate the conversation, but to add something meaningful to it. This alone sets her apart, because most people are busy trying to be heard, not trying to understand. There is also a level of control in how she expresses herself. She does not let emotions dictate her tone or her words. Even when she feels strongly, she maintains composure. This does not make her distant. It makes her precise. Her words are not scattered or reactive. They are structured, calm, and deliberate. Because of this, people naturally pay attention. Not because she demands it, but because her speech carries a sense of intention that is rare. She understands that silence can be more powerful than unnecessary explanation. There are moments when speaking less protects her energy. Not every opinion needs to be shared. Not every argument needs to be entertained. She chooses carefully where she invests her voice. This is not avoidance, it is awareness. She recognizes that over-explaining often comes from a need for validation, and she has moved beyond that need. When she does speak, there is clarity. She does not hide behind vague statements or indirect communication. She expresses herself honestly, but without aggression. There is a balance in her tone, firm yet calm. She does not raise her voice to be taken seriously because she understands that strength is not measured by volume. It is measured by control. Her words reflect her values. She does not gossip because she understands that speaking about others in a negative way diminishes her own character. She does not engage in meaningless talk just to fit in. Instead, she directs conversations towards something more thoughtful, more grounded. This does not mean every word she speaks is serious, but even in light moments, there is a sense of awareness in how she communicates. Another important aspect is timing. She knows when to speak and when to wait. Sometimes the most powerful thing she can do is pause. In that pause, she observes more, understands more, and responds better. Many people speak too soon and spend the rest of the time trying to correct themselves. She avoids this by giving herself space before she responds. There is also confidence in her restraint. She does not feel insecure in silence. She does not interpret quiet moments as weakness. Instead, she is comfortable in them. This comfort creates a sense of ease in her presence. People do not feel overwhelmed by noise or constant talking. They feel a certain calm, a steadiness that makes her words stand out even more when she finally chooses to speak. She also understands that how something is said matters just as much as what is said. Her tone is controlled, her delivery is measured, and her intention is clear. Even difficult truths can be spoken in a way that maintains respect. She does not use words to hurt, manipulate, or overpower. She uses them to communicate, to express, and to bring understanding. Over time, this way of speaking builds a strong reputation. People begin to associate her words with value. They listen more closely because they know she does not speak without purpose. This creates a natural respect, one that is not forced but earned through consistency. She becomes someone whose voice carries weight not because she uses it often, but because she uses it wisely. There is a quiet discipline in all of this. It requires awareness, patience, and self-control. It requires letting go of the need to constantly assert oneself. But in return, it creates a powerful presence, a presence where even a few words can influence, guide, and leave a lasting impression. There is a quiet independence in a woman who no longer seeks validation. It is not loud or obvious, but it can be felt in the way she carries herself. She does not look around the room to measure her worth. She does not depend on praise to feel secure. Instead, she stands on something deeper, something that is not easily shaken by opinions, approval, or rejection. Most people are conditioned to look outward for confirmation. They want to be liked, accepted, and recognized. And while this is natural, it becomes limiting when it turns into dependence. A woman who constantly seeks validation slowly gives away her power. Her mood begins to rise and fall based on how others respond to her. A compliment lifts her, a criticism breaks her. Over time, she loses connection with her own voice because she is too focused on the voices around her. But when a woman steps out of this pattern, everything begins to change. She starts to build a relationship with herself. She begins to ask, what do I think? What do I feel? What do I believe is right for me? These questions bring her back to her center. Instead of adjusting herself to fit expectations, she starts to live in alignment with her own values. This does not mean she becomes indifferent to others. It means she is no longer controlled by them. She can listen to feedback without losing her sense of self. She can accept appreciation without depending on it, and she can face criticism without letting it define her. This balance creates a strong inner foundation, one that allows her to move through life with clarity rather than confusion. There is also courage in this way of living. When you stop seeking validation, you naturally begin to make different choices. You may walk a path that others do not understand. You may say no when others expect you to say yes. You may stand alone in moments where it would be easier to follow the crowd. But she understands that true alignment often requires standing apart, and she is willing to accept that discomfort because she values authenticity over approval. A woman who does not seek validation is not easily influenced. She does not change her behavior to impress others. She does not pretend to be someone she is not just to be accepted. There is a consistency in who she is, regardless of the environment she is in. This consistency builds trust, both within herself and with those around her. People know where she stands, not because she explains it constantly, but because her actions reflect it clearly. Another important shift is how she views success and failure. Without the need for external approval, her definition of success becomes internal. It is no longer about being praised or recognized. It is about growth, integrity, and staying true to her path. Even when she fails, she does not collapse under judgment. She learns, adjusts, and continues forward without needing others to reassure her worth. This way of being also protects her from unnecessary comparison. When validation is no longer the goal, comparison loses its hold. She is not measuring her life against someone else's achievements or appearance. She is focused on her own journey, her own progress. This creates a sense of peace because she is no longer in constant competition with the world around her. There is a calm confidence that comes from this. It is not the kind of confidence that needs to be displayed or proven. It is steady, grounded, and quiet. She does not need to announce her worth because she already knows it. This makes her presence feel stable and secure, something that naturally draws respect. She also becomes more selective with the energy she allows into her life. When validation is no longer a need, she is less likely to tolerate relationships that are built on approval or control. She values connections that are genuine, where she can be herself without constantly performing. This creates deeper, more meaningful relationships because they are not based on seeking approval, but on mutual respect. Over time, this internal validations becomes her anchor. It guides her decisions, shapes her actions, and protects her from being easily swayed. She moves with intention, not insecurity. She chooses with clarity, not pressure, and in doing so, she creates a life that reflects who she truly is, rather than who she feels she needs to be. There is a quiet strength in a woman who knows when to walk away. Not every situation deserves her presence, and not every relationship deserves her energy. She understands that respect is not something that can grow in an environment where it is constantly being diminished. So instead of trying to fix what repeatedly disrespects her, she makes a different choice. She leaves. This is not an easy habit to develop. Walking away often comes with discomfort. There may be attachment, history, or the hope that things will change. There may be fear of being alone or the pressure to stay and tolerate more than she should, but she sees clearly that staying in a place where she is not valued slowly erodes her sense of self, and she refuses to let that happen. A woman who respects herself does not wait for things to become unbearable before she takes action. She pays attention to patterns. One moment of disrespect may be addressed with communication, but repeated behavior reveals truth. Instead of making excuses for others or minimizing her own feelings, she acknowledges what is happening. She does not ignore the signs just to maintain comfort. There is also clarity in how she defines respect. It is not based on grand gestures or occasional kindness. It is reflected in consistency, in how someone treats her in both calm and difficult moments. When this consistency is missing, she does not hold on to the good moments as justification to stay. She sees the full picture, not just the parts she wishes were permanent. Walking away does not mean she reacts with anger or creates unnecessary conflict. In fact, her departure is often quiet. She does not feel the need to prove a point or seek revenge. She understands that leaving is not about punishing the other person. It is about protecting herself. This shift in perspective allows her to exit situations with dignity rather than drama. There is also discipline in letting go. It is easy to say, "You deserve better," but it is much harder to act on it, especially when emotions are involved. But she has trained herself to choose long-term self-respect over short-term comfort. She knows that holding on to what harms her will only create deeper pain over time. So even when it is difficult, she follows through with her decision. Another important aspect is that she does not chase closure from those who cannot give it. She does not wait for explanations, apologies, or understanding before she moves on. She creates her own closure by accepting reality as it is, not as she wishes it to be. This frees her from being emotionally tied to situations that no longer serve her. She also understands that walking away is not a loss. It may feel like one in the moment, but in reality, it is a form of gain. She gains peace, clarity, and space to grow. She creates room in her life for better experiences, better relationships, and a better version of herself. By leaving what is wrong, she moves closer to what is right. There is a level of self-trust behind this habit. She trusts her judgment. She trusts her feelings. And most importantly, she trusts that she will be okay even after letting go. This trust removes the fear that often keeps people stuck in unhealthy situations. Instead of clinging to what is familiar, she embraces the unknown with confidence in her ability to handle it. Over time, this way of living sets a clear standard. People begin to understand that she does not tolerate disrespect, not because she constantly says it, but because her actions demonstrate it. This naturally filters the kind of individuals who remain in her life, those who value and respect her stay, and those who do not gradually fall away. She does not see walking away as giving up. She sees it as choosing herself. It is a decision rooted in awareness, not weakness. It shows that she values her peace more than temporary attachment, her dignity more than forced connection, and her growth more than staying in what no longer aligns with who she is becoming. In the end, respect is not something you can force into existence. It does not come from trying harder, speaking louder, or proving more. It comes from alignment between who you are, what you value, and how you choose to live each day. When a woman begins to respect herself deeply, she stops negotiating her worth. When she disciplines her emotions, she gains control over her reactions and her direction. When she speaks with intention, her words begin to carry weight. When she no longer seeks validation, she becomes grounded in her own identity. And when she walks away from what diminishes her, she protects the very foundation of her self-respect. None of this happens overnight. It is built slowly, through awareness, through choices, through moments where she decides not to betray herself, even when it would be easier to do so. This is where true transformation happens. Not in what the world sees, but in what she consistently practices. And as these habits become part of who she is, something shifts. She no longer feels the need to chase respect, because it naturally follows her presence. It shows in the way people speak to her, the way they treat her, and the way they respond to her energy. Because a woman who lives this way does not ask to be respected. She becomes someone who cannot be disrespected.